Before I start, I'd like to apologize for the way I sound. I had a significant surgery on my mouth a little over a month ago. I thought I would be healed up by now, but you'll hear me slip every now and then, and I'll sound a little bit like Sylvester the Cat. And if you want to laugh at that, that's perfectly fine. I might giggle myself. My kids think it's hilarious. But I'll try to avoid it as best I can. So if you see me fall like that every now and then, that's why I'm stopping. So like you said, my name is Joshua Foxworth. I was a U.S. Marine enlisted when I turned 18. After that, I went to the University of Texas at Austin, got a bachelor's and master's in aerospace engineering, married into the space program, and moved back down south of Houston to work there. Worked on the shuttle program for a while, on the Orion capsule for a while, and for a few years now I've been working privately in web design and startup companies. I got so frustrated with the Republican Party after being involved for several years that I decided to run for office and push the issues that I cared about because I didn't see them pushed anywhere else. And the one thing that you all probably know, and I'm just preaching to the choir here, that the Republican Party doesn't necessarily have policies. They tend to run on slogans. And so once they get elected, it's very difficult to hold them accountable for this. So I have a slightly longer speech I gave on the other night, but I shortened it for tonight. So the question is, what policies do we want? The GOP held both chambers of Congress and the presidency in 2016. During that time, they instituted no major health care reforms, no education policy, no Social Security proposals, no legislative changes to abortion or to marriage or anything else of substance. What small changes that were made directly by the president on trade and on immigration. And the changes that he made to immigration were undone pretty much as soon as President Biden came into office. We don't have to ask what our opponents want. They want amnesty, they want open borders, they want free health care, free education, an end to the right to bear arms, reparations, a $15 an hour minimum wage, and complete control over what Americans can say online and in real life, and the ability to destroy you economically if you speak out against them. That's what they want. What do we want? The best that you'll hear from most representatives is they want something like affordable health care, real education. Every now and then you'll hear them say balanced budgets, which is the only actionable thing you can really nail them down on, but no one actually believes they're going to follow through with that. We don't even really talk about balanced budgets anymore. The problem is that, like I said, most congressional Republicans run not on policy, but on slogans. The simple reality is that our political opponents are enacting policy, and our side is reacting, and often completely ineffectively. And what you realize when you're around these people and you're in this game is that is the game. The Democrats enact legislation, whether in power or not. The GOP runs to the media and complains about it. They come back to the voting base and say, look what they did, look how crazy this is. Could you imagine if we did this to them? Then they ask us to vote them back into power and to give them majorities. This is what we did in 2016. This is what Trump was. He was a reaction to 8 years of insanity on the left. And how did the GOP respond? They fought the president every step of the way. They spent more money than ever, and they failed to even propose a plan for health care or education, despite making health care reform a central pillar of their campaign. So I want to reemphasize that. The GOP campaigned heavily on repealing and replacing Obamacare, but then once elected, largely on that platform, didn't even do us the courtesy of coming up with a plan before being destroyed by the Democrats. What about Trump's signature issue, immigration? Trump ran on building a wall, deporting people who were here illegally, and although he didn't say it, he heavily implied that the legal immigration system would be reformed. Since that time, there have been literally trillions of dollars spent on stimulus alone, yet not one single member of the House GOP made a single effort to introduce some sort of compromise bill that would fund the wall out of that stimulus plan. And had they done that, the total wall could have been funded for less than 1% of the stimulus. By Trump's third year, he was actually calling for increased legal immigration, and the House had passed H.R. 1044, which is one of the things that spurred me to run for office. It had been passed in the Senate, where it was S-386. It would have been absolutely devastating to the tech field here in this country, and it would have essentially handed our immigration system over to India. The GOP has no viable platform. They have no health care plan, no education plan, no infrastructure plan, no spending plan, no sound money plan, or anything else. The problem is that this is exactly what our elected officials want. They want the ability to get elected without a single policy promise outside of, quote, fighting socialism. This means that there's literally nothing that you can hold them accountable for because they've promised nothing. They've done nothing but campaign on slogans. It means that they can make it legal to order alcohol on the go while ignoring the fact that our nation is being invaded, and still manage to call that the most conservative legislature in U.S. history, or in Texas history. They can do this because conservatism, or at least the word, is effectively meaningless now. Based on the last 30 years, the best definition you can come up with for what the establishment knows as conservatism is this: lose with honor and defeat with dignity. I believe that to correct this problem, we must first demand that the GOP do its job. This means that they must develop a viable, coherent plan for healthcare, for education, for spending, for ensuring our ability to speak online and in the real world, and they must promise to enact those policies into law if elected. To be clear, am I stating that we should withdraw support for the Republican Party if they fail to do this? Absolutely. Yes, we absolutely should, and we should do it publicly. You should go to your GOP events, ask whoever's there, be it the congressman or your state representative, if they back such policies. If they won't, ask them what policies they do back. And if they won't commit to something, withdraw your support and do it publicly. We all have certain issues that we care about more than others. For me, it's immigration. We have a term in the startup world, it's default debt. And what it means is that if you take the money you have on hand, the money you're paying out monthly in fees and salaries and such, and how much money your company is making, if you run out of money before your company is solvent, you're default dead. If you don't change something, your company ends. Immigration is important to me because the GOP in Texas and as a national party is default dead. And they are such because of immigration. Immigration turned California into what it is today. Immigration is the reason why the GOP won the Texas presidential election by 16% in 2012, 9% in 2016, and 5% in 2020. The taxpayers at the state or federal level, but back to the universities that charge the students for it in the first place. Believe me, they have the money. We must make the teaching of critical race theory, restorative justice, transgenderism, there we go. That's a big word, it's hard for me to say even without everything that's going on. Transgenderism and the idea of sexual immorality as somehow noble, we must make that illegal to teach